You're listening to the Dare to Love podcast with your hosts, Sonica Tinker and Christian Peterson, founders of LoveWorks.
Hi, everybody, and welcome very much to the podcast. Christian Peterson here. I'll be your host today. And hey, we're really excited to be here. I'm really excited to be here. This is our episode number 50 of our podcast. And I honestly wasn't sure we'd make it this far. To begin with, we just had a great idea, and we got so much wonderful material we want to share with you all. So that's how we started. And hey, now here we are at episode 50. So thanks for your support. Thanks for listening. We appreciate your comments. And if you are up for it, go give us a great review on Google Play or iTunes. That always helps. We've taken a little bit of a break here in January, and now we are back, which is another reason I'm excited. We haven't taken a break with our work here at LoveWorks, but just with the podcast. And we're going into 2020, and you're gonna see some great changes from LoveWorks. You're gonna see a freshly rebranded website that we're really excited about coming out soon. And yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy the look of that as much as we are. Today on the podcast, I'm going to be talking about how we reach out to each other for attention, for intimacy, for spending time with each other, and how much that often happens unconsciously. And when you're the one receiving someone else's invitation, how often you might accept their invitation or reject their invitation. In the professional lingo, this is known as making bids. So we're going to be talking about making bids today and how that shows up in relationship. And I'll tell you, this is a really important topic because it is literally one of those things that will make or break your relationship. Just on a morning like this, I'm taping this on a Sunday afternoon, and we had a slow, wonderful Sunday morning here in our house. And just on a morning like this, on a morning like this, many different invitations are made just between Sonica and I. I, for example, say, hey, do you want to join me for waffles for breakfast? That's making a bid for hanging out with her, for her coming to join me. And that's just one simple example. And I'll give you several simple examples of how this process of making bids work in our relationships. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right in. A great way to start is anyone who's ever been around children. You can just think about that. If you have your own children or your nieces or nephews, you know how much kids love showing off their creations, right? They make drawings, or they make a collection of mud and sand and leaves and sticks, and then they bring it to the adults, to mom or dad, and they say, look, see what I did. And sometimes they don't even say anything. They just hold it up for us to look at. Now, when we're the adults in that moment, if this is my son or daughter coming up to me, I have an important decision to make that will either build up the relationship with our kids or that will break down the relationship with our kids and potentially break down the kids' confidence and openness to showing off creations and coming to me. If I choose the route that is building relationships positively, I might say to my son and daughter, wow, that's wonderful, honey. Thanks for showing me that. Or look what you did. That's amazing. That's so great. A simple statement like that, but that is uplifting and validating. If I make a decision, which is typically unconscious, that is going to break down relationships between me and my son or daughter, I might, I'll dismiss it and say something like, what are you showing me that for? I don't got time for that. It doesn't even look like anything. That's just scribbles on a piece of paper. You want to make something real? Or do you think I have all the time in the world? Any kind of comment like that dismisses the kid. And everybody who's been around a child who gets dismissed like that, you'll see right away, and you'll know that it just deflates the child. They feel discouraged. They go away. Sometimes they'll start crying. But you can just imagine they receive kind of a verbal slap across the face with a rejection like that. It's a big ouch. On the contrary, if I just say, hey, that's wonderful. Wow, thanks for showing me that. They feel validated, built up, like we joined for a moment, me and my son or daughter, and they feel encouraged to do it again, to show me the next creation, and to keep opening up with whatever is important to them. Now, as adults, we might not come over and show our drawings that openly, but basically we are no different. We want someone to see our creations. more importantly, we want someone to see us. We want someone to witness us. We want someone to say, hey, can you please validate me? Can you please see me? Can you please take a little time to join with me? When we make invitations like that, just like the child showing a drawing, that is called making a bid. It's an offer to share something, to show something, or to step into my world. If I'm the one making the bid, it's an invitation to step into my world and see things through my eyes, sometimes for just a moment. And if I'm the one receiving a bid, the child comes up to me and says, hey, see what I made? I have a choice. I can either accept the bid or reject the bid. Now, I don't know if Dr. Gottman is the one who coined this term, making bids, but that's where I first heard that term, making bids. Dr. John Gottman, he's done a lot of research into what makes some relationships succeed and some fail. And there's a little quote here from an article on his website. I'll post a link in the description. And here it says, quote, in his research, Dr. Gottman observed that happy couples turn towards their partners approximately 20 times more than couples in distress during everyday non-conflict discussions. In a study of newlyweds who were still married 6 years after their wedding had turned towards each other 86% of the time while in the laboratory. Those who were divorced 6 years later, however, had only turned towards each other 33% of the time, end quote. So what I call rejecting a bid, he says turning away from. What I call accepting a bid or receiving a bid, he calls turning towards. So it can literally be measured that in relationships where we generally turn towards, that is, we accept positively our partner's bids, those are the strong, loving, wonderful relationships. And relationships that are in distress, it can be measured. Those are the ones where we turn away from each other, where we reject all these bids. And, I'll give you an example. I had a couple come into my office for coaching. They were in distress. They'd been married for 20 years. They had no intention of getting divorced or anything like that, but they were in real distress and their connection and intimacy was suffering. And during the conversation, we talked about this idea of receiving each other's bids and what it even is. And the woman said, wow, I never thought about this. I realize I do this all the time. He comes over to show me. He gets excited about all this stuff he finds on Facebook, and he says, look what I found. Check this thing out. Check this cool thing I found on Facebook. And normally how I respond is by saying something like, I don't have time for that. I mean, what am I, 10 years old? I don't care about Facebook. Jesus, can't you just do something seriously? Which is obviously a clear rejection of the man's bid to share something even for just a while. Now, as us adults in relationships, we make a lot of bids of our partners or prospective partners, because this is just as relevant in brand new or dating relationships. Some of these bids, we say them out deliberately and consciously. Do you want to go to a movie with me? That's a bid. Can I get your phone number? That's a bid where I'm deliberately asking, will you spend some time with me? Do you want to have sex with me? Those are examples of bids we make deliberately. But we also make lots of bids that are just unconsciously embedded in our everyday conversations, just like the man I just mentioned who says, wow, look what I found on Facebook. I might be watching a basketball game and I say, oh my God, did you see that slam dunk? That's amazing. Or sometimes the bids I make even sound negative. Like I might say, man, we never have sex anymore. That doesn't sound like an invitation to something. It sounds like a criticism, and that's often how it lands. But really what's behind that is, hey, I would love for us to have more sex and intimacy. Will you do that with me? That's a bid I'm making. But when I make it like that, say, hey, we haven't had sex for so long. It's not easy for my partner to receive that as an invitation, because it sounds more like a correction and a criticism. Now, on a deeper level, like I alluded to right in the beginning, making a bid is an invitation for someone I care about to step into my world, even if it's just for a moment. For someone to see me, for someone to witness me, for someone to notice me, join me. that I can share a bit of companionship with. And like that, in that way, we're still all like the kids, showing off our drawings in the hopes that someone's going to say, "You're awesome. You did so great with that. Good job. Thanks for everything you're doing," or something like that. And us too, like the kids, when someone receives our bid, we feel validated. We feel witnessed. It gives us this little momentary jolt of "I matter." And any little jolt of "I matter" is a powerful antidote to the often negative soundtracks we have running in the backs of our minds. Now, when someone rejects our bids, we feel this internal ouch. If our bids are rejected with force, just like I mentioned the example with the couple that was in my office where she says, "I don't have time for this. What am I, 12? Jesus, I don't care about that stuff." It really stings. And as you all know, when we feel stung, perhaps over and over and over again, that's not really conducive for us to have a productive response. We often will counterattack, get defensive, stop talking altogether, all of which just contributes to a downward spiral of the general environment and the mood in our house. And if our bids keep being rejected, we eventually might stop making them altogether. And a common example we see in our work is couples coming to us where sex and physical intimacy and touch and kissing has all but ceased. And a couple like that, a situation like that, you can bet, without even knowing anything else about him, that is a situation where many bids have been made over time and rejected. And like I said, when we get rejected, sometimes forcefully rejected in our invitations, we often tend to just go away with it, stop doing them altogether, or go to other people and make those bids. That's what happens when, we get attracted to someone who's not our partner or have affairs. It's because we make bids somewhere and someone receives the bids and we get to have this experience of feeling seen, of feeling joined with, of feeling validated and appreciated, which is just a powerful and essential core driver and motivator for all of us human beings. Now, as Dr. Gottman's research that I quoted above suggests, accepting or rejecting our partner's bids can literally make or break our marriages or relationships. And once you've heard this, once you've been introduced to this idea, it's pretty easy to recognize, both in your own relationships and you can observe others. Observing others is a great way for you to learn and see it, turn around and see it in your own world. Like you can pretend to be a, in quotes, relationship scientist, and if you want to make a prediction about the quality or stability of someone else's relationships, you could just watch for that one thing. Watch bids being made and then see if they get rejected or received. And although what I'm quoting here in Dr. Gottman's work, he studies couples who come into his laboratory, but this is just as relevant for singles as well. Like the whole dating process is essentially one long string of bids that either get received or rejected. A relationship that goes from, just an initial contact and begins to develop into an actual relationship is a relationship where many bids get accepted from both parties. That's how a relationship develops. If you send someone a message, it's a bid. On an app, through your app or online dating, send them an email. When you reply to a message that's sent to you, that's you accepting someone else's bid. Asking for a phone number or a coffee date is a bid. You might even say that swiping right is a sort of indirect bid that you hope will be reciprocated or received and then reciprocated. And I tell you, we talk to so many single people who have like dating fatigue or feel really guarded because they feel so easily discarded and rejected. And really what that means is that nobody really ever receives their bids. They don't get this little jolt of "I matter, I'm seen, I'm important," which is what we're looking for. Now, Sonica and I and our community here in LoveWorks, we are very, very big proponents of receiving bids with grace and kindness. I mean, for one, it's a practical and pragmatic consideration. It's just really effective communication. It's effective relationship behavior. It does secure loving stability. It secures a great mood. It makes sure that we don't get divorced and break up. It just flat out works. But secondly, when someone makes a bid, that person is taking a risk. That person is putting themselves out there in sort of a vulnerable position. Just like a kid showing off her drawing. You know, when the kid comes to you and shows off her drawing, she puts herself in a vulnerable position because she could get either rejected or received. And we adults are just like that. Making a bid inherently makes us open to rejection. And, you know, I personally think that kind of courage to put oneself out there should be rewarded kindly and generously. That's just my personal belief, and we find it to work. But that doesn't mean that you have to say yes to the request that's inherent, that lives inside the bid. So you can receive a bid kindly and then still say no to the request. For example, if someone asks you for your phone number, but you don't want to give your phone number to that person. As a matter of fact, you never want to see that person ever again. You can still receive that bid by first validating and thanking the fact that the bid got made by saying, you could say, thanks for asking for my number. I'm really pleased that you would ask for that. And then you can reply. You could say, I'm not prepared to give you my number right now, or I'll be sure to let you know if that changes, or I'll be willing to take your number so I can contact you if that changes. But the point is, you first receive the bid with kindness, and then you give your response. It's, acknowledging that it's a gift when someone wants your phone number. Like the only reason someone wants your phone number, just to stick with that example, is because they have an interest in you, because they are somehow attracted to you, because they want to know more. Or, skeptics, you might say, yeah, but it's just because that person wants to have sex with me. But even if that's the case, even if that's all they want is to have sex with you, that's still kind of cool, I think. That doesn't mean you have to say yes, but it's still kind of cool. I mean, that means that person is somehow attracted to you, finds you hot or interesting. And that's a good thing, right? I always just consider that. I mean, that's better than if that person thinks I'm a terrible person and they'd never want to see me again. So I thank them for the intention in that. I thank them for the inherent gift in that bid. And then I am free to say yes or no, and I do that kindly and with compassion as well. In a recent article I wrote, I quoted this movie character. It's from this movie called Shall We Dance? And in this movie, the wife who thinks her husband is cheating, she shares her theory of why we get married. And she says, paraphrasing here, she says, no, I think it's not because we're passionate about each other. It's because we want to have a witness to our lives. In this world with billions of people, like, what is my life? What does one life really matter? But in a marriage or in a committed relationship, it's as if we're saying to each other, your life is not going to go unnoticed because I'm going to notice it. Your life is not going to go unwitnessed because I will witness it. And I think, personally, having a witness to our lives and getting these everyday interactions of validation and I matter, that is what it fuels our soul and our spirit, and it helps us soothe the also existing messages that many of us have running in our minds, and sometimes they're given to us by our partners or parents or other people of criticism. And I know for myself personally, I don't even have to have other people criticizing me because I do it all by myself in my head. So whenever someone receives a bid, it's just a powerful soothing effect to the voices that sometimes run in the back of my head that says I'm no good and I'm not worth hanging out with and what I have to offer isn't valuable. So philosophically, I'd say there's a lot of truth to the woman in the movie, to her theory that we get together so we have a witness to our lives. And practically, in our day-to-day lives and in our everyday conversations and relationships, how this philosophy gets played out is by the making and then subsequent reception or rejection of bids. Like you can, in my experience in the relationship world, it is one of the highest returns of investment actions you can take. is, for one, you make your bids consciously, and then you receive your partners or your kids or your friends, you receive their bids generously, kindly, even if you end up saying no. And the last thing I'll add here before I'll leave you with a couple of questions is really useful to notice how you make bids yourself. Do you do it consciously? Like, do you deliberately say, hey, honey, will you spend time with me? Or something like that. Or does it come out sideways because you haven't really clarified to yourself that it's a bid or that it's something you really need? So does it come out sideways by saying, oh man, we never spend time together anymore. You don't care about me. Don't you ever want to hang out with me? Can't you just get your face out of the phone? You know, those statements like that are going to land harshly. It's not going to inspire anyone to be closer to me, but really it's a backwards, you could say it's a backwards way of making a bid that says, would you hang out with me? Would you be closer to me? So leaving you with a couple of questions, that's my first question to you is, where and how do you make bids in relationships? Is it conscious or unconscious? Do you do it in a positive way or in this backwards way that I just gave an example of? And the second question I'll leave you with and a strong encouragement is, do you receive bids with kindness and compassion? Like, how do you receive bids? Notice, like the woman that was in my office, pay attention to how you receive bids from people around you. Do you say thank you and wow, thanks for asking, or I'm pleased you would ask, or thanks for caring enough to even ask that? Or do you more kind of harshly brush it off? And the encouragement here, of course, is to receive bids with kindness, generosity, and compassion. And you can know that in doing so, you are scientifically proven to strengthen your relationship, to make it less likely that you'll move towards breakup and separation if you're in a relationship. And for those of you who are in the dating process or in new relationships, you know that the dating world can be fun and wonderful, but sometimes it can also be kind of harsh because there are so many people who can literally discard you in seconds, and you might be doing that too. And I just feel that, you know, if we can treat even the 10 people that we don't want to have a date with, if we can treat them with kindness and generosity, I think we're going to help them have a better experience. And just like the kid, we say, wow, that's a wonderful drawing. We encourage them to keep putting themselves out there. I personally think that is something very valuable to pass on to a fellow human being, even if I don't want to date that person. So that is a little bit about making bids. We hope that is useful to you, and we can't wait to have a whole other year of podcasts here, and we hope you'll be excited about the changes coming to our look and content. So we will see you on the next podcast episode. Until then, have a really good time.
You've been listening to the Dare to Love podcast with your host, Sonica Tinker and Christian Peterson, founders of LoveWorks. If you found this valuable, please hit the share button and share with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or your other favorite hangouts. You can find more about Sonica and Christian's work at loveworksforyou.com.